Welcome to Daily Papers. Today we're talking about a feeling I think many of us have had recently. You're using an AI chatbot. One minute, it's a genius. It writes a perfect email, explains a complex topic beautifully, or even writes a poem. The next minute, it completely forgets what you were talking about 5 seconds ago, or it confidently tells you that Abraham Lincoln invented the smartphone. And the feeling it produces isn't just annoyance, like when your computer freezes. It's a special kind of intense, pull-your-hair-out frustration. Why does it make us so uniquely angry when AI is brilliant 1 second and bafflingly dumb the next?
Well, a new paper has a fascinating answer. It argues this isn't just a technical glitch. The problem is what the paper calls an ontological problem, which is a fancy way of saying it's a problem with the very nature of the thing we're interacting with. To get a handle on this, the authors introduce a new term for these AIs. They call them quasi-creatures.
Quasi means sort of or almost, so an almost creature. The AI simulates intelligence so perfectly with such fluent language that we can't help but treat it like a thinking being. We ask it questions as if we're talking to a colleague.
But it isn't a real creature. It doesn't have a body, it has never lived in the real world, and it has no genuine understanding of the concepts it's talking about. So when it messes up, it doesn't feel like a machine making an error. It feels like this creature is being deliberately obtuse or forgetful or just broken in a weirdly personal way.
And this experience of interacting with a quasi-creature leads to the paper's main idea, a new framework called the Uncanny Valley of Agency. Now, some listeners might have heard of the original Uncanny Valley. It's a concept from robotics.
Right. The original idea from the 1970s was about appearance. As robots look more and more human, we tend to like them more, but only up to a point. When they get almost perfectly human, but something is a little off, the eyes are dead, the movement is jerky, we suddenly get creeped out. Our positive feeling plunges into a valley of revulsion. Think of a creepy doll or a weird CGI character.
This paper takes that idea but applies it to something else, not appearance, but agency. Agency is basically a thing's ability to act independently and make its own decisions.
So imagine a graph. Along the bottom, the x-axis, you have perceived agency. On the far left, you have something with zero agency, like a rock. A bit further along, you have a predictable tool, like a calculator. On the far right, you have a human partner with very high agency.
And on the vertical y-axis, you have user trust and comfort. For the calculator, our trust is high. It's predictable. For a human partner, our trust can also be very high. We know how to interact with them. We're comfortable at both ends of the spectrum.
But generative AI sits in a strange place. It seems to have extremely high agency. It generates novel ideas, it can debate you, it creates things out of thin air. So as we use it, our trust and comfort start to climb. We think, wow, this is an amazing, super intelligent partner.
And then it plunges. The AI says something absurd. It loses all context of the conversation. It confidently hallucinates a fact. And in that moment, our trust and cognitive comfort completely collapse. We fall headfirst into the uncanny valley of agency.
It's that feeling of cognitive dissonance. The AI is too smart and agentic to be dismissed as a simple, broken tool, but it's too erratic and unreliable to be treated as a trustworthy partner. It's stuck in the valley, and we're stuck in there with it, feeling incredibly frustrated.
And the authors actually have data to back this up. They ran an experiment called Move 78, where they asked people to do a creative task with an AI that was specifically designed to be inconsistent, sometimes helpful, sometimes not.
The results were pretty stark. People got extremely frustrated. The researchers used a standard psychological tool called the NASA Task Load Index to measure things like mental demand and frustration. On a 20-point scale for frustration, the average score was over 15. That is exceptionally high.
They found an incredibly strong statistical link. The more inefficient and unhelpful the participants rated the AI, the higher their frustration levels soared. The paper says this is the statistical signature of that steep plunge into the valley.
But here's the most surprising finding for me. You would expect that people who are really familiar with AI, the power users, would be more patient and understanding of its flaws.
But it was the exact opposite. The experiment found that participants with more prior AI experience reported higher levels of frustration than the novices.
The paper has a great name for this, the expert user expectation gap. A novice user kind of just rolls with the punches, but an expert has a more developed mental model for how an AI is supposed to work. They understand things like instruction following and context. When the AI violates those basic principles, it doesn't just fail at the task, it shatters the expert's entire model of the system. And that violation is deeply infuriating.
It comes down to what our brains are trying to do when we talk to these things. We instinctively use what's called a theory of mind. We try to guess at the AI's beliefs, its intentions, its knowledge. We ask, why doesn't it understand what I'm saying?
But the whole attempt is doomed from the start. We're trying to model a mind that simply isn't there. There are no beliefs or intentions, just unfathomably complex math and pattern matching. It's like trying to have a heart-to-heart conversation with a dictionary.
So the paper's takeaway is that the current goal of making AI that perfectly simulates a human is fundamentally misguided. It just inflates our expectations and sets us up for a bigger, more frustrating fall into this uncanny valley of agency.
Maybe a better approach is to design AIs that are more transparent about their alien nature, interfaces that remind us that we're dealing with a powerful but fundamentally non-human tool.
So the next time you find yourself about to throw your laptop out the window because an AI gave you a history of the Roman Empire written in pirate slang, just take a deep breath. You're not going crazy. You've just taken a trip into the uncanny valley of agency.